It's so much deeper than just diet and exercise. There's so much confusion. I mean, it's a $50 billion industry that people are spending on supplements and fad diets. And it's all a lie. It's all a trick. Statistically, 2/3 of women are restricting. 91% of women are unhappy with the way that they look. A lot of what we know and what I teach about metabolic health, weight loss is very counterintuitive. Going back the last 70 years, it's been diet, restriction.
Welcome back, beautiful souls, to another episode of Liberate Your Bliss. I'm your host, Chelsea, and today I have the absolute joy of sitting down with someone who's not only a powerhouse in the world of wellness, but also one of my best friends, Christina Farias. Now get this, we're both from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, but we actually met on the island of Hawaii during the pandemic. And as life would have it, we've been soul sisters ever since. Now both frequenting the healing vortex of Bali. And Christina is a lifestyle coach with a seriously rock star background, literally. She toured with Fleetwood Mac as their lifestyle coach, supporting them in staying healthy, grounded, and nourished while traveling the world. And today she's the creator of Take Your Show on the Road, a transformative program that helps artists, entrepreneurs, and everyday humans stay balanced and radiant no matter where life takes them. And in this powerful conversation, you'll learn why gut health and hormone balance are essential for sustained energy, clarity, and emotional wellness. Simple lifestyle shifts you can make to feel more aligned and in control of your body, especially while traveling. How to stay grounded and healthy even in high stress, high movement lifestyles. And I can say from my experience, because Christina is currently my lifestyle coach, her work is life-changing. She's helped me understand my body, my hormones, and my energy in an entirely new way. This episode is packed with practical wisdom and soulful truth. So whether you're living out of a suitcase, working from home, or somewhere in between, this episode is going to serve you big time. Let's dive deep into this heart-led real talk convo with my girl, Christina. So excited to have you on. I feel like our friendship has been unbelievably crazy and all around the world.
I know.
Growing up from the same area in Boston and then spending the pandemic with you in Hawaii to now both living in Bali. What a journey.
It's so wild. And I'll start with saying congratulations to you, because it's been so incredible to see your journey, see you now taking, on this amazing role of inspiring and being a healer and growing. And it's so fun to have friends and also mentors in life that, become an inspiration.
And you have always been an inspiration to me, and actually were one of my first coaches. I just want to share that Christina has been actually traveling the world for a very long time. She started her journey touring with Fleetwood Mac. So let's just talk about how the hell did a girl from Cape Cod, Massachusetts end up touring the world with Fleetwood Mac?
It's so fun to talk about now because it is still, even to this day, such like a pinch me experience that was so pivotal in shaping not only my confidence and worldliness, but just being such an incredible experience. And it's funny because I know you believe in manifestation, and I was just telling someone the story the other day. I think when we're young, we journal and we manifest things because we're so insecure we don't want to say them out loud. And so after college in 2007, I was moving across the country with an old partner, a guinea pig, and a chocolate lab puppy. And I had a journal, and I was writing into my journal all of my hopes and dreams and things I would never share. And I manifested, and I wrote in this journal, all I want to do when I grow up, is work with the rock band and tour the world. And so there I was, maybe manifesting that, maybe, the universe providing. Yeah, I had moved to Lake Tahoe after college in 2007 and got really into fitness, doing triathlons, coaching, nutrition. I had studied nutrition and exercise science through college. And then I fell in love with surfing. It was actually on a trip to Bali and South America 14 years ago. And I said, you know what? Somehow Hawaii is calling my name. I don't know anyone there. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I want to get good at this surfing business, and I think it's a healthy environment. So I moved to Hawaii, spent my 6 months surfing, and thought, okay, maybe I'll, move back to the mainland. My family thought I was crazy, but I got this wild idea to start a business, and I started a mobile gym, and I started doing in-home retreats, which kind of took off in a really short amount of time. I was working at resorts, I was teaching fitness classes, And Mick Fleetwood, who has lived in Hawaii for years, I got linked up with him. I was working and training some of his investors in his restaurant, and it's a small social network there. It's all about the coconut wireless, and got linked up with Mick. And at the time, he was dealing with a lot of health issues. He needed to lose a bunch of weight. And I wrote him a prescription just like I'd write for any client. And he said, all right, I'm in, let's do it. And that led to moving to LA with him. We got him down about 45 pounds in a very short amount of time and was living in LA. And initially it was sort of like, well, we're not going to take you on tour. You know, we've never had someone come on tour as the wellness coach, you know, when you'd have to travel on the plane, you'd have to stay at the fancy hotels, you'd have to actually be with these principals, you know, day and night. And so it was sort of so far-fetched. And then when it came down to it, they decided, you know, well, we're making space for you because we see you as indispensable. And the first leg of the tour, I was definitely traveling with the luggage guys, flying first class, moving luggage. I mean, I earned my stripes wearing many hats initially. And it was just incredible. Yeah, that was almost nearly 10 years off and on of traveling the world. It was so incredible. And I think I've been to 250, 60 Fleetwood Mac shows and loved every one of them because, of course, it's a sing-along and it brings all sorts of people. And music has always been something that I love. And in my, you know, perfect world, we would all get together to dance and sing. And that's how, you know, communities would come about. So when you're seeing live music 1, 2, 3 times a night, your spirit just absolutely soars. It was such a great environment.
And how was it trying to keep a rock band healthy?
You know, it actually has led to this incredible business. Of course, now I've got a fitness app and a holistic nutrition education and lifestyle change program. And my mantra for clients is learning to take your show on the road. You know, a lot of us, we look at an airplane or we come back from a trip and we're sick. And the neat thing about that tour, they have one of the best tour managers in the world. And you get a book that is as thick as a Bible, and it's your tour book. And every single thing is run as if you were on a spaceship heading to NASA. Everything, or to the moon, everything is run so meticulously every day. There's a call sheet. And so with that schedule, it allowed us to really keep to a meal timing schedule, a sleep schedule, a day off schedule. I mean, I traveled with a cooler bag, and not that we couldn't eat food at the venues or at these, you know, the Four Seasons, they have a beautiful kitchen, but it was eating organic, eating consistently. So it kind of shaped what I'm doing now with clients is we're no longer in one place. We're no longer, you know, at home. 60 to 70% of the meals we're eating are outside of the home. And so it was a great challenge. It was so fun. I wrote cookbooks during that time. I got to really benefit from structure, routine. I've always been uber disciplined, and my programs are all around working out these discipline muscles. So it was fun. I mean, I would get on the airplane and give the flight attendant the meal that I had prepared, and everyone's like, what are you doing? You know, are you cooking, salmon in your hotel room? What's going on? And what I learned is, and what kept me on this journey was the structure. People would say things like, so what's it like backstage in a Fleetwood Mac show these days? You know, are they wild and still partying? And I would say, no, it's smoothies, it's almonds, it's pre-show warm-up, it's post-show cool down, it's, breath work, it's mindset work, it's, day off restoration therapy. And I love the quote, rock stars don't age, because when someone has that level of passion, they're avoiding a lot of the distractions. And it was so beautiful to be a part of.
This role for you started how many years ago? I remember you were what?
2013.
So 13 years ago. Now, would you say that role that was so unorthodox and almost created for you, do you think that's a role that most bands have on their
I think it's moving more and more towards that. I was actually just talking about this the other day when they were trying to decide what they were going to call me. And I said, well, I'm a lifestyle change specialist. And it was sort of like, they looked at me like, we're not going to call you that. Lifestyle change, what is that? We'll call you the wellness coach. And now here we are in a modern world where, as a hormone specialist, someone comes to me and says, I want to balance my hormones. Everything is about lifestyle. Aging is related to lifestyle. Mental health is related to lifestyle. So I think there is a huge movement in terms of restoration therapy, mindset coaching, breathwork coaching. I think the changes in the last 13 years, even just the accessibility to healthy food. chemical-free food, organic food. Caterers are even, tailoring their menus towards anti-inflammatory autoimmune protocols. And I still get calls all the time. I work with a lot of musicians and helping them, develop pre-show, post-show. It's all about nutrition. And so it's the most amazing time to be alive. And certainly being one of the first people to be talking about a lot of these things, there was definitely stigmas around it. I'd walk into the catering, and they called it the Fleetwood food tour because it's just the most amazing Captain Hook style table, if you know that movie, of food. And I'm, asking the caterers, can I have my chicken and my broccoli? And people are hiding their foods from me. And, so as the nutritionist, the wellness coach, you're definitely in a little bit of a league of your own. But now I think it's, so much more adopted and so much, becoming so much more of a welcomed role for sure.
And you're so embodied in what you speak about, which is what I love so much about you. And I remember we used to laugh, being friends with the one that was always healthy and always had the chicken and the boiled eggs on the plane. It was like, for fuck's sake, just have a glass of wine and a bag of chips with us. And now where I'm at, it's wild to look back and see how embodied you've been in what you've been teaching for so long. And I don't think there's a lot of people that can say that. So it's a huge testament to what you've built, because you've built everything that you walk and you preach and you talk and you live that way every single day. There's not a moment that I've ever seen you really living outside of that value system.
I mean, getting into holistic nutrition and studying hormones, at this point, I wouldn't want it any other way. There's definitely been periods of time where there's been disordered eating and over-exercising. But as a hormone specialist and when I work with women, there's nothing more important than studying your cycle, studying your hormones. And when we look at mental health and addiction and self-esteem, they're also directly related to our hormones, which sugar, our nutrient intake. And I love, my mantra is flexible rigidity. So it's how can you stick to these lifestyle non-negotiables? And it's not even about, at this point, it's not about how I look. It's not about how my clothes fit. Of course, I want to be able to lift myself out of a wheelchair when I'm 80, and that's why I like to stay strong. But it's more about mental health. And I think there's so many of us scraping by and sort of faking that. But when I take a deep look at how I feel emotionally, I've dabbled with alcohol throughout the years. It's a depressant, and it depresses me. And so my goal, and now at 40, has been to not need anything, to just feel really content. And and my lifestyle plays such a big role in that. My mantra for clients is being able to separate yourself emotionally from physiologically. And there's so much confusion. It's a $50 billion industry that people are spending on supplements and fad diets and fasting and cleansing. And it's all a lie. It's all a trick. Living that lifestyle, I work a lot, and there's no way I could keep up the energy, the passion, and that genuine human connection and empathy without taking care of myself. So now it just doesn't even feel like a sacrifice. It feels like, staying at homeostasis, and then when I derail from that, I know why. But yeah, that's such a nice compliment, because there was years where I'd, especially going home and spending time with family. Well, what do you mean you don't eat? What do you mean you don't eat this? Well, God, you have to go to the gym again, and it's sort of like, well, yeah, I keep a schedule, I keep a routine, and that keeps me balanced.
And being embodied in that, you can hear those things and not take them personally, because you just know that that's just their own shame being projected onto you, right? Like a lot of people, and even I remember putting that on, because it's like we want everyone to be with us if we're eating shitty. We want everyone to be taking the shots, because if somebody's not taking the shot, all that does is highlight the shame of the person that is, right? And I think it's really beautiful that no matter what, you've always stayed very true to your non-negotiables.
Yeah, it's huge. I think in this, nothing more influenced by our, hormones and our sleep and our energy levels than what we want to put into our mouth. I went through it early on, being the one to get made fun of modifying a menu order at a restaurant or whatnot. And now I get to work with clients that are dealing with the same thing, because the question comes up a lot, like, how do I talk to my friends about what I'm doing without making other people feel uncomfortable? And I think it's a neat time now. And I love, I have a group program going right now. And I said to them, one of my favorite things is creating this safe space. When you do this with your friends, you can actually talk about, the science behind why you're eating what you're eating and whatnot. Because yeah, it's a really hard thing to talk about for people. And that shame spiral that makes, somebody else feel uncomfortable, it's very real. Be able to indulge guilt-free and shame-free and put on that cute dress and feel sexy and fit and amazing. So, the sacrifices we make in between then. And when you learn how to manipulate what you're eating and create that balance, then you don't wake up with the shame. And so I think it's so important for people to really understand, the big picture of balancing, their energy intake and so forth, and recognizing where that shame is coming from.
Right. And shame is such a deep emotion. And I think a lot of us are, and there's like this big shame spiral that most people are in, that we avoid feeling by filling it up food, drinking, promiscuous sex, and talk more to this than I can.
Mm-hmm.
But we're trying to feel a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
rather than recognizing that there's a really deep-rooted shame that needs to be felt and understood. So how do you help clients with that?
Yeah. Well, it all goes back to our nervous system and regulating our nervous system. So we're living in a time where we have what we call hyperactivity of our central nervous systems. We could call it popcorn brain. And so when our physiological needs aren't met, we're dysregulated, which takes its toll on our hormones. We have irregular cortisol or cortisol dysfunction, which is causing, erratic behavior. And then a lot of it is mindset. Something that happened in our formative early on years shaped our belief system, our thought patterns. And so, yeah, we're living in a time where our body wants something to make us feel good. When we have that hyperactivity of our central nervous system at night, when we're supposed to go into this sort of rest and digest parasympathetic state, and your body's supposed to flush its toxins and heal and repair, and your blood sugar's balanced, and your growth hormone and your hormones are produced, we're not having that rest. We're not having that restoration. And so we're waking up tired, right? And that causes, over time, anxiety and depression. It causes your neurotransmitters, which are your brain chemicals, your happy chemicals. You referenced a couple of those. They stop firing. They become dysfunctional. They basically get tired. So anxiety and depression become the culprit. And then we add erratic blood sugar or insulin spikes, and cortisol and insulin go at a war. And then we add 95% of the population that's malnourished. And what that means is obviously not that we're not eating enough food. We're either eating food that's devoid of nutrients. Our body is reluctant to absorb the nutrients. We're not eating enough of the good stuff, is what I call it. And so you have a hypothalamus in your brain, which is your appetite center. And when that turns on, it creates a craving. And that's going to stay on until that craving is met for either a vitamin or a mineral or fiber or water or whatever the macronutrient may be. And so that manifests itself as a craving. And so if we have this perfect storm of hyperactivity of our central nervous system and malnutrition causing constant cravings, which presents itself as some sort of biofeedback, your body asking you for something, then we add all of these sources of addiction. We are pretty much genetically wired to be addicted to things, right? We have sex. Your body makes dopamine before and after sex to reinforce procreation, right? We have exercise. Of course, that's a natural source of dopamine. But then we have all these chemical sources of dopamine that are stealing the show. And so if we're constantly dysregulated, our blood sugar is imbalanced, we're malnourished, and we're tired, it would make sense that insert food addiction to sugar or alcohol or drugs or whatever, negative behavior. And then we add that for those formative early on years where there's a lack of self-love, there's a lack of safety, security. We're not taught a lot of things, not to shame our parents, right? We're just living in a time that is completely different with technology overload, digital overload, stimulation overload, that is sort of even out of our parents' scope. You know, a lot of us were going to school, playing sports, doing extracurriculars, coming home, doing 2 hours of homework, sleeping for 8 hours a night. And our for women, you know, we've been under attack, you know, for years, like I would say. So it's so much deeper than just diet and exercise. And it's our gut, it's our blood sugar, and it's our circadian rhythms. And so until we look at the root of all those things, which, you know, is where lifestyle mapping comes in. I teach lifestyle mapping. So it appeals to our one need, and you and I have talked about this before. Our need is to be safe, secure, right? And so when we lifestyle map, it's planning. And it sounds really mundane to a lot of people. Like, you want me to plan out my food? You want me to plan out my social calendar, my workouts, my day, my meal prep? That sounds like a waste of time. But then we do it, and all of a sudden we have time management. We have delegation of tasks, prioritization of tasks, organization. We have an ability to, you know, be flexible and also handle change when it comes at us, so that when we actually schedule a rest day or a weekend away with our boyfriend or a day to just chill, we can actually chill. You can work out until you're, you know, wasting, you know, away, and you can diet, but that's not going to actually fix the root cause anymore, which is why I think it's beautiful what you're doing, you know, specifically through meditation, breath work, energy healing, mindfulness. Because, gosh, 12 years ago, I would have put that at the bottom of the list. I would have certainly gone to the food and exercise first.
But you can't.
And now it's at the top of the list. And I'd go so far, and I tell this to clients all the time, until you start calming your nervous system, until you start, of course, balancing your blood sugar and really working at calming, you know, this hyperactive, you know, mind, it's impossible to really heal.
I think that's really beautiful. And I remember when I first worked with you, I was about 185 pounds, I think, when I was starting to work with you. And I was working out twice a day, walking 5 miles a day, you know, basically starving myself Monday through Thursday, barely eating anything, just so that I could go out on the weekends. And I didn't understand the yo-yo effect of all of that. But my whole nervous system was in such a state of survival that I remember joining the calls with you. And regardless of how much it made sense, I couldn't shift my lifestyle because I never felt safe to make those changes. It didn't work in the time. And I'd go all in and then come all out, and all in and all out. And I'm wondering, is that still the case with a lot of clients that come in and want that quick fix? And because again, what I feel like, and why I'm asking this, is I think even the nutrition for me back then was a dopamine chase. I was chasing feeling like I was good enough to meet this nutrition calendar, but then it wasn't, I couldn't sustain it because it was like a hormonal chase, even that. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us have to go through those chapters of life where we burn the candle and we live it up, and it's a fun season. And certainly, you know, from outside, like, your life was so exciting then, and it's so fun to have different chapters. Statistically, 2/3 of women are restricting. And I've seen statistics as high as 91% of women are unhappy with the way that they look. And so, yes, a lot of what we know and what I teach about metabolic health, metabolism, and weight loss is very counterintuitive, because going back the last 70 years, it's been diet, 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 restriction. And so what we know now, and a lot of people don't even understand their metabolism, right? Less than 12% of the population in the US is metabolically healthy. And all disease lies under a blanket of metabolic disease or metabolic dysfunction. And so our metabolism, and when we talk about, I love, you know, the whole, what you mentioned about I was exercising to eat. Well, your metabolism is essentially the process and the sum of all these chemical reactions that keep you alive. You are a big blob of chemical reactions, cells, bacteria, and the goal is to have an energy source to power the reactions to keep the lights on in your house, of your body. And your metabolic rate is the speed that you turn food into energy. Now, exercise actually only makes up about 15 to 20% of that daily metabolic rate. We hear the term, you can't over-exercise a bad diet. And so when we talk about metabolism, it's adaptable. It's the most adaptable part of our body. But any sign of war, your body has one evolutionary response: shut off metabolism, survive this famine. And so what we don't understand is stress is your body's attention to anything that is change. So that could be not getting enough sleep, which would be the biggest one. That could be not getting enough of the nutrients, working out too much, not working out at all. It could be, your mother-in-law in town. It could be anything. It could be literally looking in the mirror and thinking, oh God, I look horrible. So when we talk about metabolism, one of the biggest stress responses would be to restriction, calorie restriction. And when we're young, we can get away with it, right? We could starve ourselves for 4 days and the scale goes down. We're reinforced that we did a good job. All we did was dehydrate ourselves. And then we go out and binge on the weekends. Of course, the weekend warrior, syndrome is a huge saboteur of progress. But what we don't understand is that over time, your body will go into what we call adaptive thermogenesis, where it shuts off and it starts hibernating like a bear. And this is a great thing, right? Because your body thinks that there's a war, there's a famine, and it says, let's store every ounce of this fat, dump a bucket of water on my thyroid in the form of thyroid inhibiting hormone in a panicked effort to save your life. And so here we are in our modern world, where we have stress coming at all angles. It's in the water, it's in the food, it's in the air, it's in our lifestyles, it's in our, all of these practices. And we're at war, as a population. And it's a beautiful time to be alive because there is a major movement happening and people are waking up and we're making changes. But when it comes to metabolism, it's a healing process. It's, can we bring that number up? It's very personalized. Again, counterintuitive to what a lot of us think and what is being sold to us. And I love working with clients because they say things like, I've never eaten more food in my life, and I actually don't want the cookies anymore. The thunderstorms in the kitchen at night have calmed down. I'm calming the food noise in my head, and I'm starting to actually be able to control my thoughts around my body. And then such a huge part of it is tracking our hormone cycle, and that's such a big part of what I work with women, to do, which is probably the most important thing that we're not teaching young women at the onset of menstruation. But yeah, so a long-winded way of saying you're very normal. It is so normal. I would say, in my intake forms, most people have tried at least 4 to 6 diets. And I tell people like, oh my God, thank you so much. If you can starve yourself for so many years, you are going to crush it in this program, because that's discipline, and discipline is a muscle, and it is a muscle that it's not something that we're born with. It's sad that even though a lot of even health professionals, nutrition professionals, fitness professionals that are preaching these things are still restricting.
Yeah. So what would you say are the biggest misconceptions around diet and nutrition that you see every day?
Well, the first one would be around fiber and plants and carbohydrates. I would say, low carb, no carb diets are amazing. They have a huge, wonderful space in the world. But I teach carbohydrate timing because carbohydrates are also our body's favorite energy source. They fuel our brain, they have fiber, they do so many amazing things. So the all or nothing is probably my most frustrating. A lot of people come to me and they're like, well, it's not a good time for me because I've got a lot going on. And I say, no. Yes, in a perfect world, when we want to lose weight, we'd go to a retreat center in Bali where we drink celery juice and howl at the moon. But this needs to fit into your lifestyle. So I'd say the first one that really frustrates me is don't eat carbohydrates. Now, but that's so individualized. Now, if somebody won't get off, is completely sedentary and has diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and is insulin resistant, then yes, there is going to have to be some periods of carbohydrate manipulation and so forth. And there is such thing as weight loss resistance that comes along with those diseases. But for most of us, if we don't eat the good carbohydrates, we're going to crave the bad ones. So learning to time our carbohydrates and learning to master insulin sensitivity is such a huge piece of the puzzle. The whole no fiber movement is really sad for me. As a gut specialist, fiber is probably, I would put it at the top. It's the third of the most important 7 nutrients. Your body's nutrient dependent. So we need, these essential nutrients that we get from food. So water would be the first important one. protein would be the second, and fiber would be the third one. And that's because 70% of our immune system lives in our gut. Your body is more bacteria than it is human cell. And so the fiber, which is the indigestible parts of plant-based foods, literally feeds your good bacteria, it grows your immune system, and it creates a source of energy to power all the hormones, the neurotransmitters, the vitamins that are made in our gut. You have an entire nervous system in your gut called your enteric nervous system, and all the communication that comes from your gut to every part of your body, especially your brain, is powered by these things called short-chain fatty acids, which are made by fiber fermenting in the gut. And so we know, and I share this statistic all the time because I think it's a really great shock value. Our ancestors ate about 150 grams of fiber a day, right? The average American is eating less than 13 grams a day. And we know that we need at least 30 plus grams a day to beat colon cancer. Now, if we look at the rates of colon cancer and gut dysbiosis, all disease begins in the gut, period. And so these no carb diets that are fueling this movement of I don't eat plants, avoid pectins, avoid lectins, it's dangerous. Is it great? And if I had to win a competition and you said to me, Christina, I'll give you $20 million, take 500 people, they know nothing about nutrition, and get them to lose the most weight, my ego would probably kick in. I'd say, I want to win. They know nothing. I'd say they're not allowed to eat any carbs, and I'd probably win. Then they'd all gain the weight back, kill their metabolic flexibility, and have really disordered eating. But short term, a no carb diet will work. And so a lot of these internet sensational people are saying, do my diet, you'll lose a lot of weight, and maybe they will short term, but it'll end there. What would be way better is for these people to teach things like carbohydrate cycling and carbohydrate timing, how to distinguish between a healthy carb and an unhealthy carb. So that would be the most frustrating one for me. And the second one would be the over-exercising. And my mantra for clients is stimulate, don't aggravate, especially when we enter what we call our delicate flower seasons, which begins around, perimenopause, but around age 40. Once you over-exercise, you'll kill your progesterone, you'll kill your estrogen, and you'll cause even more adrenal fatigue than we all have as women. And so our approach to exercise with these boot camps, the high rocks, the CrossFit, the hot yoga, these are so incredibly dangerous, especially for women. It's really defeating the principles of progression and progressive overload, which actually cause the strength, the protein synthesis. But it's also just digging us down a bigger hole of hormonal imbalances.
What about with right now with the whole movement with these GLP-1 inhibitors and everybody on these fat loss medications? And, you're obviously seeing that this is working, myself included, having tried GLP-1s. And then it, like you said, it's that quick fix, and then you come off and everyone's jumping up again. How do we beat that system?
Yeah, I'm so sensitive and empathetic around the topic of GLP-1s, and I've done extensive hours, and I'm a total nerd, so my free time is spent doing research and reading peer-reviewed articles. I've worked with many clients that have used GLP-1s, and I call them the fat accelerator. Now, if we go back to the history of the last 100 years, there's always been something, and so this new thing, it can be both a positive and a negative. Now, statistically in the US, most people are off these within 6 months to a year. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is it causes major digestive upset, and they're expensive. So most people are either can't afford it any longer, or they're just sick of feeling sick. Now, why I think they're great is we have hormonal imbalance these days called leptin resistance and insulin resistance and weight loss resistance, which means for someone that's been overweight for years and has diabetes, they have an inability to actually mobilize fat from their cells. For those people that actually have those disorders, those are they're a great drug short term. However, and I have seen there's some corporate programs and whatnot that are starting to incentivize lifestyle change programs, which is what I'm working in the corporate space. Because the dangerous thing about these drugs is a few things. The first one I would say is, in addition to causing ending the food noise, right? They do block appetite, but most people that have gotten themselves to a place of being overweight, which is stemming from malnutrition, have a very unhealthy relationship with food. We never had a value system on eating the good stuff, right? Your body is nutrient dependent. You don't get the nutrients, you literally don't repair your body, of course you're going to be depressed. Of course you're going to have no energy, and of course you're going to gain weight. So if they never had that value in the first place and now they're just not hungry, then the small amount of food that they're eating is even more depleted of nutrients. So causing more, malnutrition, which could be hair loss. I mean, depression is a huge side effect. So they cause major gut dysbiosis. The second part of that is muscle wasting, because at the chemical level, they block ATP production. They block your body's ability to make energy. So therefore, you're not making muscle. So muscle and bone loss are two very, very, very terrifying long-term side effects. The other effect is GLP-1, glucagon peptides, glucagon-like peptide. Glucagon is one of your most important hormones. It's the hormone that does the opposite of insulin. And a lot of it's made in our gut. When your blood sugar drops, it mobilizes fat from your cells and makes your blood sugar come back up. So when we're fasting, it's what we call the weight loss hormone. So it's blocking this hormone, which is great. That's what's causing people from not, gaining weight, but it's causing major disruptions in our hormonal feedback loops. Your hormones are a big game of telephone. And when someone says, I want to balance my hormones, the first thing I say to them is, there's no quick fix, right? You have 50 hormones that are your body's communication system, and they're married to your nervous system. Balancing our hormones is like the most important thing ever, because they control everything. They're how your body stays at homeostasis. So when we start inserting a synthetic or artificial form of a hormone, you're messing with your body's telephone system. And so we're seeing a lot of issues with the pancreas. We're seeing a lot of psychological effects. One of the biggest one is emotional dependence. So I think they're an amazing drug. They're a life-saving drug. I think they're very scary for someone that doesn't have a lot of weight to lose, and for someone that doesn't have insulin resistance and diabetes, because that person should have one goal: balance my blood sugar, balance my hormones, heal my nervous system, restore my gut function, and build muscle, all of which are going to be disrupted by this GLP-1. But I've worked with clients that have lost 70 to 100 pounds on this drug and gone through 70 weeks of holistic nutrition education, and they come off the drug and they are thriving. They've lost all the weight, they use the accelerator, and they have a whole new relationship with food. They've learned so much about food
Bingo.
that they're not going to go back to ever wanting to eat this junk.
So
they now know how to fuel a healthy body.
So that's why the integration is so
100%.
important. We can't just, and it's very similar with the healing journey as well. You see a lot of people, and I compare the GLP-1s to plant medicine. Of course, going and doing ayahuasca or bufo or mushrooms is going to expand your consciousness really, really big. And you're going to see things that blow your brain, right?
Totally.
But when you come back into the physical reality, can you hold that frequency? Can you live from that place of oneness, of compassion, of light? I find that really fascinating, thinking about the GLP-1s in that same way. And I'm not going to lie, I'm one of the people that has been hooked on them, and coming off has been really scary. But I don't know if you remember, I couldn't lose the weight at all. I was at that point where, from the trauma and the overeating and the over partying and hating myself, I mean, my nervous system was fucked. I couldn't lose it.
Yeah.
It was so hard. So I'm really grateful for them.
Yeah.
But coming off has been really scary. And I think a lot of clients that I work with resonate with the body shame that created the problem in the first place, the self-hatred that led to creating a body that I believed I was big, created that body, programmed that body. And now coming out of that, it's been really interesting. So I'd love for my viewers to know, how do you help clients work through the traumas of body shame and their relationships with food in the beginning of their journey?
It's so important. And I think a lot of it is a practice. And it starts with self-affirmation. It starts with self-love practices. And a big part of it is understanding the role that our hormones play throughout the month. Now, you have a 28-day cycle. And throughout that 28-day cycle, again, your entire being and chemical hormones revolve around one thing: getting you pregnant. And so for young women, it's so important that we understand the role that your follicular phase, your ovulation, and your luteal phase play in your self-esteem, and literally the way you see yourself. When you're in your luteal phase and your estrogen drops and your progesterone starts to rise, you literally see yourself as less symmetrical. You see yourself as less attractive. You turn off a lot of those pheromones, those attractive qualities. So riding the wave throughout the month is so crucially important in understanding who you are. And I'm all about education. So I lead self-study. So it's our approach to exercise, our approach to nutrition, right? You're less insulin sensitive before your period. So that's a huge piece, is how do we study these patterns, right? How do we avoid our triggers when we know we're in a luteal phase, we don't feel attractive, we're more prone to anxiety, we're more prone to depression, and it's normal, right? The human experience is what? Both parts suffering and both parts joy. And the goal is self-awareness, where you can ride the waves of both. What I teach is studying your forecast. How do you wake up and look at how much you slept? Because what you see in the mirror and how much you sleep, there's a direct correlation. Where are you at with your routine? If we're dysregulated because we've been traveling, we've been out late at night, we've been burning the candle, it's normal that what you see when you look in the mirror is going to be less than. It's rewiring our, and avoiding our triggers, right? You'll notice the week before my period, I log out of social media, right? I don't put on tight clothing. I avoid those triggers. And that's taken me years of evolving. I don't lift heavy weights in my luteal phase, right? Everything revolves around my cycle and knowing who I am. And then we have menopause. And menopause is characterized by, extreme depression. Everything slows down: bone growth, muscle growth, insulin sensitivity. So that's a season of restoration. If I could prescribe one thing for the entire world, it would be no less than 7.5 hours of sleep. Women need even more.
Gosh, I feel like I need 10.
Yeah. And when you
And
don't
I'm
get
still
the sleep,
tired.
exactly. Yeah. So when it comes to approaching our relationship with ourself, it's a journey, it's a practice, and it's also recognizing where that comes from. It's loving your body now. Most people spend their whole life, especially women, gaining or losing. They never actually just get to enjoy where they're at.
What was your first experience with body shame? Do you remember your
God,
story?
yeah. I have so many of them. I could name them all. I got called Thunder's Thighs in the 3rd grade.
3rd grade.
And no lie, I did not get in a bathing suit at the beach probably until college, because I was so embarrassed. I quit track because they wanted me to wear short shorts, and I was so ashamed. I got called Hershey Kisses because I'm very flat chested, which now I'm proud of it, but I got made fun of. And there's so many times, little things, or someone said something that you hold with you.
Oh, and it takes a long time to heal that. I still, and even with the work I do, so as an inner child healer, I look at when the triggers come in. So the trigger would be what causes us to go and crave the sugar, what causes us to go and eat the cookie, right? So that's the effect. The cause is the trigger. So what position, what place that I put myself in that caused me to have some sort of a chemical reaction, like you said, and it's hormonal, but it's also nervous system related, and choices that we're making that caused me to need to, let's say I had to have 3 cookies or something like that. So I start to look at the cause and the effect. And when I look at the energy that created the trigger, for me, it's always these younger versions of me that are in so much pain and holding this emotional charge. Like when I was in 8th grade, I remember going to Abercrombie and Fitch with my mom. My body then I was a ridiculous soccer player. I was so fit. And she said, "You're a size 4. I was a size 0 until I was 22. And I was like 14. And I remember being like, oh my God, I need to be a size 0 then. A size 0 for my body structure, that's never going to happen, Mm-hmm. And I remember I made a decision that day that I'm the big one. And I carried that forever. And then believed that and became that and proved that right with such a bad relationship with food. And I was never taught about, we owned an Italian restaurant, for fuck's sake. I was playing so much soccer. And then after soccer, I'd go to the restaurant and eat bread and cheese and oil and chicken Parmesan loaded with cheese and this tiramisu. And the food was like my nurture because I was so over exercising as a kid that when I came home, the food was it made me feel safe.
We had such
loved.
Similar upbringings where everything was about food.
It was like, the parties that we just overate, and Thanksgiving, you would eat to the point where you couldn't even fucking function.
Yeah.
But it was this program that becomes who you are. And then as an adult, I'm like, why can I not function in society? Well, my whole life was programmed on over-exercise and
Yeah,
then overeating.
100%.
Like,
Yeah, and then when we start to look at where the craving is coming from, chances are you either haven't had enough water, or haven't had enough lean protein, or haven't eaten enough vegetables or plants or fiber, and your body's just hungry. And unfortunately, I call it being altered. The definition of being altered is a small change that causes a big effect. So any one of those things missing, be it sleep, you're tired, right, or you're hungry, or you're thirsty, we're not going to crave chicken and broccoli.
no, we want
Your brain's going to
cookies and
yeah. And then
lasagna.
throw in a sugar, throw in a hit of, God, I hate my body, which triggers a cortisol spike, which causes a blood sugar spike, right? Which leads to the vicious cycle. Get stressed, crave sugar, eat sugar, gain weight, want more sugar. So it's addictive. And for a lot of us, one of the first questions I ask clients is, let's talk about childhood. What was the relationship with food around? It's like, you ever go to a party and you get to the party and you're going to be social, you're going to be present, you're going to have really genuine connection, you're so excited, and you eat one cookie. And you went to that party hungry because you thought, I'll eat when I get to the party. And you eat that one cookie and it opens up the floodgates. And now you want another cookie and another cookie. And the being present is out the window. And you were altered when you got there. You were hungry and somebody put sugar. What do they put in front of you at a restaurant? Bread, chips, right? That's to open the floodgates.
To get you craving more.
Yeah, exactly. And so learning portion control, learning how, nutrient partitioning or how to form meals, learning how to eat enough of the good stuff, learning meal timing, right? Learning, how to register to new levels of satiety and portion control. All we have to do is look at a bakery case and we have an insulin response. We start salivating, your body wants those things. We're living in a time where we very much can compare processed food or manufactured food, if you call it, it's not even real food, to drugs. And I always tell clients, sometimes you're going to do drugs. And when you do drugs, you're going to go do some drugs and you're going to wake up the next day and you're probably going to want some new drugs. You're probably going to feel pretty lousy. So if you can go do drugs consciously, where you say, you know what, it's date night, I'm going to go out, I'm going to have some drugs, I'm going to, indulge. I know I'm going to wake up the next day wanting more. I know I might feel a little bit off because I didn't sleep well from the drugs. And I know after I have the drugs, I'm probably going to really want some more drugs. But if we can be conscious in that decision where we ate enough of the good stuff early in the day, we front-loaded our calories, we drank plenty of water, we have the dessert after a healthy meal, so it doesn't have the blood sugar effect, well, all of a sudden, we have a healthy relationship with those drugs. We create a fat loss window the next day, we have plenty of the good stuff, and we move on. If those drugs are part of our routine all the time and we're not eating enough of the good stuff, well then yeah, we're not going to have control around those drugs. We're going to very much be wanting more of those things.
Yeah, and it's really a vicious cycle. Like, even I had to move away from the life that created the problem in order for me to do such deep healing, and I still am battling, the old stuff. But now in Bali, we're so fortunate to have healthy food at our fingertips, and smoothies and celery juice and all these healthy options. And people that go to the gym, they spend their whole day at the gym making connections about health and wellness. It's such a different lifestyle. So I feel, for a lot of my viewers in America, I feel for you. I understand, because it's such a different life there. And I wish we could adapt to having more places where health and wellness was cool.
Yeah.
Because it's not cool in America yet. It's getting
there.
It's getting there.
But
Pickleball
it's not like it is here. There's a lot. It's happening. I think it's shifting. But yeah, we live in Disney World.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, I pinch myself every day to be living. We both study energy, and we both study the transfer of energy. And we both study, energy patterns, and we're just big blobs of energy. And the goal is that energy flows into us, and we rejuvenate it, we revive it, it flows out of us, and we give that to somebody else. And here, there's beautiful energy. It's fluid and it's transferring. And I think a lot of people are definitely living in places where there's disease, there's energy blocks, and it's not as fluid. I think one of my favorite things about living here is it's $12 to buy a bag of Doritos,
Yeah.
It's so much more affordable to go buy, a healthy, big, beautiful rainbow salad with homemade flax chips, spirulina sprinkles, and, a sesame crusted chicken ball than it is to go buy anything processed.
It's wild.
So that shift is huge. I do think, and I don't know if this resonates with you at all, there can also be a certain pressure that you feel here.
Oh, to be fit and healthy.
To be fit
and everyone's competing with who's the best in it. Yeah, I completely, even I went in and did a 10-day water fast for healing. Now I'm going to that water fast was to lose weight. Let's be honest. Yeah, I said it was healing. But when I started getting on that scale every day, and it was like a 45-day detox with fruits and veggies, and yes, the benefits of doing a 10-day water fast for the lymphatic system are all wonderful things. There's a lot of research out there for that. But what it did for me, from the energy behind my intention in doing that, was so much more traumatizing than it was beneficial, because the energy behind it wasn't about health and wellness.
Yeah.
It was because I wanted to lose weight fast.
Yeah.
And then it was, again, me abusing that inner child inside of me again with food and restricting her.
Yeah.
And this day that I got out, I ate 15 tacos. I put all the weight back on. I was so sick. Now, yes, the effects of the water fast definitely helped.
Fasting is life-changing. I mean, even just knowing, I've done, 21-day fast and cleansing, and we know cleansing is one of the most healing things. I would say another one of the things that drives me nuts with our diet world, especially with women, is this intermittent fasting, which is so dangerous. Now, there's never been any studies that have been done to show that this is good for women. And in fact, when you have adrenal fatigue and you have chronic stress overload, fasting is the most dangerous thing ever. So we live in this world where it's like, oh, I don't eat till 12 or 2. That's dangerous. If you want to make your body feel safe, you wake up and you give it 30 grams of protein. You wake up and you give it nutrients to get it running. And the other thing is these fad cleanses where you take 5 handfuls of herbs and do coffee enemas. And, a cleanse should be eliminating chemicals, right? So you eat more of the good stuff and you give your liver a cleanse. You don't take supplements. You don't drink abrasive teas. We don't do these crazy wild, enemas and whatnot. You just take a break from the sugar and you take a break from potentially the meat,
Isn't it wild though that we as a human society will do anything but do the work. Thing. Right. And it's so fascinating to me. We'll go and we will punish our bodies with these ridiculous fasts and all of these things, but we won't just sit with our cycles and learn about our timing and meal timing and hormone regulation.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy to me. We just want the easy way, which is always the harder way. I always say, with the healing journey, and again, I am still on my journey with the food stuff, so I'm definitely not a master. That's why I wanted you to come on and talk about this, because you inspire me in that way. But with energy healing, it's slow is smooth and smooth is fast. It's like make small shifts every single day consistently. What's your morning practice like? Are you gratitude journaling, mindfulness, nervous system regulation? We don't need to go and do ayahuasca every single day and a water fast and then 6 Kundalini sessions and an intensive and then go to a Vipassana, because all you're doing is telling your body, you're not good enough. You're not safe.
Yeah, the safety is the big
more
thing.
And more and more and more and more. Like you said, I love how you're attributing the metabolic path to safety. The safer the body is, the higher the metabolic rate will be.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100%. When I started my platform, it was like, okay, do I focus on nutrition? Do I focus on exercise? Do I focus on mindset? Do I focus on, one aspect? And now here I am focusing on everything, which is a lot. It's a very multifaceted program, but it's all about education. And I always tell people, you wouldn't take 3 classes in a different foreign language and think you were going to be fluid. Right? Nutrition is the study of nutrients in food and how our body uses those nutrients and how we can learn nutrition to slow aging, right? And reverse disease or beat disease and increase our quality of life. And it's an area that we just don't know. And ignorance is bliss to some extent, but what's more important now than understanding nutrition science, blood sugar, hormones, gut health. And so I have a lot of clients. I think in this 6-week program that I'm running right now, which is a public group, 60% of the group is return clients. I have clients that have done my programs over and over again. I have clients I've had for 7 years because There's a huge accountability piece, of course, but it's also people are just loving learning it over because it is repetition. A lot of this is that foreign language. And until we start to understand the language, it does feel like another job. It does feel stressful. A lot of it's just simply accessibility. Do we keep healthy food accessible to us in our refrigerator? Step one, right? Sleep is so big. Someone isn't going to tell you, okay, Chelsea, your first homework this week is to go to bed at the same time and to wake up at the same time. They're going to say, buy this melatonin, sleepy time, gummy, or tea, or
double magnesium.
they're going to tell you to buy this. Well, all that stuff is, a supplement that's not going to supplement what balancing your circadian rhythm is going to do, right? And so I think a lot of it is rewiring ourselves to understanding the science behind the why.
And with how many people in this world right now are stuck in perpetual fight or flight, which is what I'm seeing a lot of. They're either ridiculously chasing something and anxious and out of their body in that way, or they're really stuck in freeze. How do you help support those pathways with nutrition? What's the first steps?
Yeah, so when most of us are dealing with that sympathetic dominant, which is your fight or flight dominant state. A lot of it is, of course, starts with lifestyle mapping. So when I work with a client, it's let's look at your week. And I always tell clients, you've got one battery to give each day. And you have to have prioritization of those tasks. And some days you're going to have a whole lot of your battery to give to yourself. You've got plenty of time to meal prep, to clean the house, to have coffee with a friend, to work out, to get your work in. In other weeks, there's going to be stuff that comes up that is prioritization. And so it's delegation, prioritization, and discipline of what's important. If we're so easily distracted, and you know as well as I do when you're running a business, it could be so easy to get overwhelmed where you're giving to too many things. So it's waking up every day and deciding, who am I? What do I need today? And what's important? And so the lifestyle mapping comes in, and if we wake up every day thinking, I gotta go to the gym. What am I gonna eat today? Oh, I need date night. I haven't had sex with my boyfriend in forever. There's no clean laundry. Oh, I haven't done any work today. Oh my gosh, I've got a girls' night tonight. Right? It's just too much. And then we have 2 minutes between calls and we're on social media and we're scrolling. It's just way too much. So a lot of it is truly, can you have discipline? Can you create space where you're alone, where you are focused? We weren't necessarily meant to keep up with all of the world's problems. Shutting off the TV 3 hours before bed, I would say at least 1 hour before bed, I think is just little things that we can do to start creating structure. And, in Buddhism, it's a beautiful thing. It's, can you be here now? And if we look at the brain, it's all about controlling, it's all about, can you control the mind? Mm-hmm. Can you control the thoughts? And it's truly a practice.
Such a practice, and being present with yourself to just not acting on the thought either, right? Like, can you observe the thought? Can you observe the craving maybe? And Can you just see that? And can you choose a different thing?
Yeah.
And that's consciousness.
And what is your body really asking for?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it needs some fresh oxygen. It hasn't moved. 60% of the time we mistake hunger for thirst. Maybe you're just thirsty.
Even for me now with, I used to leave my energy sessions and I felt, so because I'm working with such an intense frequency, my body feels like this after. So how I would handle that, I would go right to the gym. But then I'd come home and I can't shut off.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm pretty wired, pretty high anyways. And so grounding was so challenging.
Yeah.
When in reality, my body was shaking. It didn't need more energy. It didn't need more movement. It needed fucking stillness.
Yeah. We have multiple kinds of stress, and one of them is called eustress. It's EUSTRESS. And this is the really good stress. This is the stress that you and I experience when we're working with clients or racing to meet a deadline or go on a trip or go skiing, right? It gives us huge surges of adrenaline. It's a really good thing. And after that stressful situation, the cortisol is supposed to come back down. The adrenaline is supposed to come back down. However, when we have all these other sources of chronic stress, right, then that's just another level of stress. And cortisol dysfunction is kind of like the annoying little sister that won't leave you alone when it stays elevated and we stay in that fight or flight state. Yeah, we become basically just completely hyperactive and we can't come down.
Which is the biggest issue I'm seeing, is that people can't ground. And even in energy healing, they're coming and they're having these big experiences, these big wows, but they can't ground. They can't come back into the present moment. They can't be still. It doesn't feel safe to be still. So it's been really, I've been observing myself in this of
how do I come down?
How do I come down?
I know. And it's so challenging. I mean, I dealt with chronic overexercising for years and more. You know, on tour, I got myself so sick from waking up to run every day at 4. And it was just brutal. I teach clients to track their HRV, which is their heart rate recovery or heart rate variability, how to track their sleep, how to track their heart rate, their energy output, so we can kind of use HRV being the biggest one because it shows the balance of your sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, and how do we be smarter than ourselves and use biofeedback and biometrics to separate ourselves, because a lot of times, you know, we don't understand what our body is telling us, be it a craving or exhaustion or, you know, a sympathetic inflamed state. And so all we think is more.
Yeah, rather than rest.
Instead of take the rest. And so it's
hard to rewire that. And I think rewiring the nervous system really takes time. That's what both of us are really trying to do with our clients, is helping them rewire the nervous system. And that doesn't happen overnight. It's consistency, it's discipline, it's outsmarting the old program, rewriting the new program.
I think both of us are in a unique situation too, because at our age, we don't have children. And I think something that I tell women all the time, like, you are superhuman. Because with almost 40% of women now being the head of household and women being these modern day warriors, it's really hard to not be maddened by the lack of forgiveness, the lack of sympathy, the lack of sensitivity to women. And women just give and give and give. And their masculine energies are coming out in these major boss lady roles. I work with some of the most amazing women. I'm so in awe of what a lot of these women are doing. And they don't show the weakness. They don't show the exhaustion. They don't get the rest. You know, if you're a modern woman and you're taking care of the household and you're making sure there's food in the fridge and there's grocery shopping and the house is clean, you're taking care of the children and all their extracurriculars, you're working a full-time job, you're trying to, take care of your body, have a social life,
personal development,
taking care of your parents in many cases. You could start to see why the rates of autoimmune diseases, the rates of cognitive decline, the rates of, osteoporosis, are just really, really, really killing women. We deserve time off around our period. We deserve time for rest and restoration. And at what point is the tipping point happen where there's more support, be it financial or, emotional, for women in this modern world that are now, keeping up. I wouldn't even say fighting to keeping up with men, oftentimes surpassing men in, in a lot of different fields, and who's fighting for them.
And we only have, what I know from a hormone standpoint, and correct me if I'm wrong, we only have 1 to 2 days where we have the equivalent hormones to them.
If that.
And so it's fascinating. Their hormone cycle turns over every day. They get a whole new, array of hormones. And it's 28 days for that whole process. Yet we're expected to show up every single day the same. And I agree with you. And something that I see now, I do womb work now and yoni work. And most women cannot receive orgasms. They're so disconnected from their body because they're in perpetual fight or flight. They can't even feel anymore. And I think it's fascinating that we in our wombs energetically carry 7 generations of shame.
Wow.
Just by being a woman and being born, because you were in your mom, like the egg of your mother while she was in your grandmother, and it goes on. And when we clear the energetic imprint of the womb, we're just carrying around shame and unworthiness. It's not even ours. Men don't actually carry that because they don't have a womb space. it's just different. And I do think we need to have more compassion for women, especially in the healing space and in the emotional space, because I do think that there's such a disconnect between the whole human race and our bodies. Really, I think men are disconnected as well. And if we could connect in with nutrition, with energy work, with breath, the one thing we can control, nervous system regulation, coming back to the body, bringing peace to the system rather than this constant chase, we could really change the world. But it takes discipline.
I hate to say it's all on women, because I do, like you just said, there's a lot that's plaguing men right now too. The expectation of, the male to become the king of the kingdom. And, men are under attack with their hormones and exposure to toxins and the endocrine disruptors and the obesogenic toxins, and being so targeted with, sources of distraction and substance and whatnot. So there is a major need for, for changes. And I do think, and I think we can both agree that there is a light. I've been using the term survival of the fittest for years, and sort of saying, there's got to be a tipping point. And right now we're there. We're spending $4.2 trillion a year on healthcare. We're depleting our soil, our nutrients in our soil. We're killing our water, and finally a lot of this is coming to light. And it's one of the things I love about social media is the ability to access, to get some of these, words out and start raising awareness and exposing the pitfalls in our Food and Drug Administration and the conflicts of interest and falsification of science. And whatnot. And I think there's a lot of whistleblowers that are stepping up. Love Casey Means. I think she's amazing. I think in the US, it's huge. I think it's also happening here in Bali. They've got huge issues with pesticides. It's happening worldwide. And so I think we're at a time where things are shifting and awareness is there. But have we got, the addictions are very real, and it's, have we gone too far? And how do we bring it back? I think there's a lot of us out there that are making these changes. Like you said, that used to be maybe seen as hippies or, or whatever, that are now like, oh, okay, maybe they were onto something.
We look at the world like this macrocosm of what's happening, when it's really, if you shift your inner reality and what, by choosing the food that you're eating, like you said, balancing your hormones, balancing your energy, doing nervous system regulation, mindfulness work, soul work, all the healing, you can start to then connect and create a community. And like you said, we heal in community. Mm-hmm. And then if we can start to focus on what we can control, which is being a positive influence to our community, to the people that relate to us, and we can serve those people, and we can build and grow from there and start to connect with people that align with our same vision. It's not really about shifting the whole world. That's out of our control, unfortunately, but we can make an impact. And you're
100%.
Making a massive impact now with your programs and with your apps. And, hopefully I'm making an impact with the healing world. And then we just start to send people to the right people. And we just build from this network of, that's what I love about my podcast. Everyone that comes on here has a purpose, has a passion, has healed their bullshit, has changed their life, rewired their nervous system, and come out the other side with a light that they're shining out to the universe, attracting the right people that want to make the shift, because you can change. We didn't grow up with regulated nervous system parents. We didn't grow up with great positive eating. We didn't grow up that way. It just was a different world. But look at what we've created.
Exactly. I always tell clients that my goal is that you learn something and that you can teach and inspire somebody else and, become a warrior of health. And, it all starts with eating enough of the good stuff, period. Can we eat enough of the good stuff? If somebody starts drinking enough water and eating, enough of their essential nutrients, magical things happen. And then all of a sudden we're sleeping better and we're feeling better. And then you're showing up for somebody better. And instead of being a dark energy, it's a lot easier to have that positive energy, and that attracts,
Totally. And that's the whole vibration. That's manifestation, which really ties in this whole podcast, right? Like manifestation, believing that you deserve to live this amazing life, believing you can be healthy, believing you can age gracefully and beautifully, believing you can change your habits. It's
Yeah.
all about really believing and finding the light and continuing to find the light and the other lights around you that are shining it and using them to influence your decisions. Wherever you've been in my life, you've been a light.
Aww.
So I really appreciate you.
I love you.
And I'd love for anyone watching this podcast, how can they find you and how can they work with you? And what's next for Christina?
Social media, my website is always a good way. I work with clients both privately and then also I have public group programs. I also work with large corporate groups. My website is fariasfitness.com. Social media, even though I hate social media and in my perfect world, I'll never need to use it again. But I do have a social media where I post educational things. It's Farias Fitness LLC or a Facebook page, of course. So those are probably the best avenues. You know, I represent a safe space around nutrition. And when clients show up and say, oh my gosh, I've had the worst week, I couldn't wait to show you. You know, I say, wow, I'm doing a good job because most people don't want to talk to their nutritionist. And you've had a taste of working with me. You know,
I can't wait to do it again.
We can talk, anywhere. But yeah, so that's how to get a hold of me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And if you could give one sentence of advice to somebody watching this that wants to get started on their nutrition and body love journey, what would you say?
Educate yourself. Learn. Start learning. I think, that's the biggest thing is ending the confusion. And so education, be it a program like mine, if you think getting healthy means you can't ever have an ice cream cone with your kids again, you're so confused. And you are, have been brainwashed into the trap, of unhealthy relationships with food. So I would just tell someone to, just like you'd get on Duolingo and, if you want to learn a language, like start learning the language of nutrition.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I love you so much.
You. Thank you.
Wow. That episode blew my mind. I told you it would be packed with gold. And if you're anything like me, you're walking away feeling more empowered, more informed, and definitely more connected to your body's wisdom. One of the most powerful things Christina shared today is the concept of a flexible metabolic system. A body that adapts, responds, and flows with the demands of life instead of constantly feeling depleted or dysregulated. And what struck me so deeply is how perfect that mirrors what we teach inside our Soul Path Mastery program, which is the creation of a flexible nervous system, one that can hold your expansion, regulate your emotions, and support your healing on every level. Because here's the truth. Sustainable transformation isn't just about doing the inner work. It's about learning how to embody it in your energy, your biology, and your everyday life. Because when your nervous system is resilient and your body is supported, that's when deep healing really sticks. That's when you stop surviving and you start thriving. So if you've been feeling called to go deeper, to move beyond surface level healing and step into your highest alignment, our Soul Path Mastery program was made for you. This is an intensive soul-led journey into nervous system regulation, trauma healing, shadow integration, and full energetic alignment with your higher self. It's for those of you who are ready to stop playing small, who are tired of looping in old patterns, and who are craving real, lasting change from the inside out. Because like Christina said, the goal isn't perfection, it's adaptability. It's about creating a lifestyle, a body, and a nervous system that supports the full expression of your authentic soul. So if that's you, if something stirred in your heart today, I invite you to take the next step. Reach out to us. Let's explore whether Soul Path Mastery is the journey you're ready for. And as always, you can find me at The Path here in Bali or online holding space for that deep work. Until next time, honor your body, regulate your energy, and remember, your healing isn't just for you. It's a ripple that changes everything.